Hey guys, thank you for joining us. I'm DV and your host. We will just get started momentarily. Source code theft is one type of data breach. Large technology companies, including Facebook, Google, Twitter, got breached in the recent past. Source code theft is the most underreported data breach. Let's discuss how to protect your source code. Only 7% of companies we polled feel that they face a threat from sponsored hackers. The truth is, nearly 70% of hacks are sponsored hacks. Either they are nation state actors or they are organized crime or several other type of sponsored hackers. Only 12% feel that the threat is malicious. The truth is, over 73% of breaches are malicious. Nearly 70% of the companies feel that they have all the security they need. I'm sure I would say nearly all companies feel that they have all the security they need. But it's more likely that they're not prepared for a data breach incident. Far from it. It takes about 6 months to find out that they were even breached. Your employees are your biggest risk. The reason is simple. They are the targets because they have access credentials to your network, your source code, and your customer data. They are the targets. Only 10% of breaches were actually caused by any malicious insiders, or maybe some pissed off co-founders or recently fired executive or a senior developer. The majority of compromised users who were either spear phished or were targeted by non-work related email accounts. Protecting source code and your customer data should be your main security priority. Over the past 10 years, all 50 states had introduced laws on data breach notification, but these laws are related to customer data. And the result is that you see a lot of reports of data breaches every day, mm, to the point that we have data breach uh, fatigue in the press. However, there is no law that requires companies to disclose theft of internal data or source code or some confidential information. As a result, it is the most underreported data breach. $250. What does it take to target and breach your company? It takes a phishing page, it takes Wi-Fi hacking software and password hacking software, and maybe software that makes it completely anonymous for the hacker to hack. All of these are available on the dark web for under $250. Over a period of 1 to 5 days, a hacker can sit in a coffee shop next to your company, target one or many of your employees, posing as a person looking for a job. You can then gain access to your Wi-Fi network, password hack into it, and then password hack into one of the employees' credentials, and voila, steal your source code. Hackers hackers have all the tools they need, and they're very inexpensive. How about your company? Do you do any network discovery? Do you apply all the necessary application patches? Have you done pen testing or checked if your firewall policies have been tampered with? There are a number of security policies that you need to implement, and you need to have better processes and better tools. Before compromising any system, let's actually go through the anatomy of a data breach. Before compromising any system, the hacker needs to get into your network. If you implemented any protections, that's not an easy task. Even if you have some minimal security, it's not an easy task. Lockheed Martin's cyber kill chain is a well-known model for the attack lifecycle and applies well to the attack patterns we have seen in mega breaches so far. Let's review the cyber kill chain. The hacks are not crimes of convenience. The hacks are done over a span of time. The hacks are planned and the groups responsible have done their homework in the recon phase of the cyber kill chain. They gather a great deal of intelligence on their target. They learn about their corporate structure and employees, and they map out the organizational IT infrastructure, such as IP ranges, ports, running services. In addition, they identify vendors and service providers and trusted business partners who may provide a less direct path into their target network. They're trying to find a weakness. Full hack has been about targeting remote desktop. For example, by running scans in the network, an attacker can easily identify the presence of a remote desktop application. Another example is using brute force of passwords, rather hacking with passwords using brute force. Another example would be gaining login credentials through spear phishing or other social engineering campaigns. A recent example is a combination of a phishing attack that hit a trusted business partner and then able to gain access to network using the partner's credentials. And finally, we have the old exploits targeting unpatched apps and systems. Once hackers gain access to the network, things get a little easy. The hackers begin to target what are classified as the crown jewels of the network, such as Active Directory or an LDAP, network applications, and find way to escalate privileges. The hacker then installs malware and harvests source code. The next and final phase is the exfiltration process of the data or source code to a drop site. This is a very delicate process. The attacker will take much extra care to avoid detection. The exfil is done deliberately and slowly. So, for example, they don't do any large data transfers. They don't do significant, periodic bursts. Anything, just make sure there is consistent bandwidth usage so it's not showing up in any network discovery methods. Now let's talk about malicious insiders. You all know of a high-profile case of Waymo that sued Uber for intellectual property theft and settled for $245 million. Similar to that, any insider with privileges already have access to the network and your assets. A malicious insider could scan your network, find ways to change access privileges if they don't already have access. This insider can then install malware to harvest source code. This has not happened in the case of Waymo. The insider already has privileges. He didn't have to install any malware because he already has access to the source code or to the design documents rather. The next and final phase is the exfiltration of the data to a drop site. This is also a delicate process like we discussed earlier, where the hacker will take extra special care to avoid detection and doing the exfil in a deliberate and so slow way where there are no large data transfers and very consistent bandwidth usage. In Waymo case, it appears that the malicious insider used USB drives, thumb drives, to copy the data or load it onto their personal Dropbox site or box site. Um, so, what can you do about it? Let's discuss some ways to actually protect your source code. You could implement some really good security practices. Step one would be implementing two-factor authentication. It's simple and easy. It ensures an extra level of protection for any compromised users. So even if a user was compromised, the two-factor authentication will basically help especially when you combine it with the ability to whitelist IP addresses that can access your network. It will provide very high level of difficulty for the hackers to actually break into your network. Number two, step two, as in a best practice number two that you could implement right away, is periodically checking for application patches. And this is very important because auto updates can be disabled or ignored by the user, or they simply break. The third would be proxying all traffic through your firewall. It provides a way to ensure that outgoing traffic has only one way out. As a result, you could inspect it better. So setting a group policies to point all browsers to the proxy and then set the firewall to allow web traffic only from the proxy, that's the perfect way to do it. You could also distribute proxy settings through what is called WPADs, web proxy auto discovery methods, and redirect all port 80 traffic. Obviously, port 443 is a bit more difficult when you need to intervene with the PC's certificate. Lastly, endpoint protection. This is simple, easy to do. Most endpoint protection software also include virus protection. So, but this is very useful. You could set policies and disable USB drives, printing on external printers, and more. Well, there are a number of other practices that are useful. These four practices, applied appropriately and periodically checked, will significantly lower the risk of a data breach for your company. Another major thing that you could do is to ensure that you have employee awareness and you review your security policies. For example, awareness about phishing. Phishing is a type of fraud in which hackers attempt to get personal information from your employee. They impersonate as a legitimate source. For example, you see a lot of phishing attempts from American Express as if it's a legitimate American Express transaction or a legitimate Apple transaction. Your employees should be made aware of it. They should be careful in trusting. FBI reports that such business email compromise hit about $12.5 billion. Second, your policies, your employment agreements, onboarding approach, you know, taking adverse actions on any policy violations for which you need to get your managers and supervisors aware and trained, doing appropriate exit interviews and offboarding as a result of the exit interviews. Do a quick review of all your organization policies and ensure that you have some, if not all of these in place. Another step is to look at your data processing and data protection agreements with your vendors. This has become standard. But if you're working with AWS or Azure or other large providers, you may not have a big say in their DPAs. It's indeed a good idea to review or discuss data security and protection policies with your vendors. Now, alternately, you could sign up with InfoSec Enforcer. We provide source code protection as a service. We are different from other solutions because we offer a cloud-based service for small and mid-sized businesses. We are simple to deploy using a proxy to direct all traffic for inspection. We do not need any pre-processing to identify your intellectual property. And our service starts at about $500 a month for up to 40 users. InfoSec Enforcer focuses on exfil and preventing or inspecting exfil at the time of exfiltration. We are different from other solutions because we offer cloud-based service with a lot of automation, including automated source code classification and identification, and automated policy generation based on your employee account privileges, and more. This is what makes our system extremely simple to deploy. And we do not need any pre-processing to identify your intellectual property. And you could be up and running in about 1 or 2 days. I want to thank you again for joining us. If you have any questions or would like to schedule a demo with us, please send me an email or just call me. Okay. Thank you very much. Good. Take care. Bye.